Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Peter Jennings. I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. Excited to be doing another lineup review. I am going to be doing weekly PGA lineup reviews. This one's coming out a day later just because yesterday was tax day, which is always a sad, frustrating, just awful day to be alive. But happy to be past that and reviewing a golf lineup. Also excited for this week's golf content. Going to be recording the podcast with Brian and Colin later as well. But wanted to review a couple lineups here. Specifically, I had one lineup do extremely well in all tournaments. I was fortunate to qualify for 2 seats in the Fantasy Golf World Championship, both with the same lineup. In addition, the lineup that won those 2 seats did very well in GPPs. I chose to review this specific tournament because I also had my cash game team in this tournament. So I will review both of those lineups and discuss my strategy and just kind of talk about some things I'm thinking about for golf coming up for the rest of the year. So let's dive into the good team here. Of course, had my boy Bryson DeChambeau. I've been touting him quite a bit in general. I think he is honestly a prodigy is not exactly the right word. I think he's definitely a superstar and someone that we'll see emerge as a top 10, maybe even the best golfer in the world at some point in his career. I definitely think he has Hall of Fame potential, and I'm kind of ignoring the data on him in general, or the lack of data, and I'm just rostering him. Obviously, he has a very unique swing, a very unique process, but his mental game is what makes me so bullish on him long term. Obviously, he's thinking about it in a totally different way than most players are. He has all the same length irons, which I'm sure you guys have heard about. He has a very systematic approach to everything. He has this yardage thing on his bag for his chipping. Basically, he thinks about how far the ball is going to go with each wedge based on how far he brings back the club, based on a clock system. So 7 o'clock, it'll go this far, 8 o'clock this far, 9 o'clock this far. He thinks about putting in a different way, and that was really his only, kind of hiccup throughout the week was his putting. If he would have putted well, I think he would have won this tournament, but he did not. Still was great, tee to green, and I'm really bullish on him long term. So he's someone I will be rostering going forward in a lot of different spots, and I think that we'll see his price continue to rise because I think he's a superstar on the PGA Tour. Next guy I had was Bill Haas. I had him across a lot of different teams, including my cash game team. I thought he was close to a lock. He's someone who just shows up really well in these tournaments with slightly weaker fields. He's an elite golfer relative to the field when the superstars all decide to take a tournament off. And he was just a guy who ranked really well in my Fantasy Lab model and someone I thought was a really sharp play. Not super expensive, not super cheap either. I believe he was like 92 or 9,300, and he was just a great play this week in my opinion. Jerry Kelly, this is a guy I continue to roster. He's a cut maker. Didn't finish strong here, but had a good couple first days and kind of fell apart during the weekend. But he was only 6,800. Had him all over the place. Just thought he was a great salary relief guy, and he's someone who's just consistently making cuts, which I think is really valuable for your cash game teams and even your higher end tournament teams. I thought he was a great player in all formats just because of the value he presented. Russell Knox, this was my most popular play. I had him on 100% of my lineups. Russell Knox it was my top rated overall golfer on Fantasy Labs, which I'm excited to do as well. One thing I should let you guys know, I will be doing a little 5-minute preview of the week on Wednesday. I either record it Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, and I'll release it during the day on Wednesday, just kind of previewing the model I have set up for the week on Fantasy Labs. And then in addition to that, I'll go in and just discuss kind of some golfers that I'm liking. I believe we're going to have that as a premium piece of content, so the subscribers of Fantasy Labs will have access to that. So in my model that I made for this specific week, Russell Knox was rated number 1. Loved him overall. He has great driving accuracy, fits his course well. I think he's playing extremely well overall. He's already won this year, and I expect big things from him going forward, especially at courses like we just had. He was a no-brainer, and you'll see he was on a ton of my rosters. He was 20% owned in this contest. I thought he was a relatively popular pick. I thought he'd be higher owned, honestly, and happy that He performed really well, had a chance to win, shot a 65 and a 67 on Friday and Sunday respectively, so he really kept me alive on those critical days. Friday, obviously, you're sweating your team to help everyone makes the cut, and then Sunday is obviously the big day where you see how you finish. So Russell Knox was a big part of my process this week. I thought he stood out more than almost anybody, and he definitely performed with a nice second-place finish. Kuchar was the next guy on this team. Kuchar was a very popular pick, 30% owned here. I wanted some exposure to him. He ended up not being on my main cash game team, but I thought he was right there. Great course history, very accurate driver of the ball, which was very important last week. Driving accuracy was critical, and he was an elite play, kind of near the top end range. Was one of the more expensive guys in the $10,000 range. But, he definitely paid off, shooting 3 under. You can see here he's very consistent, and he's a guy that in these right spots where driving accuracy matters, where you don't just need the bomber who's going to make a bunch of birdies, Kuchar's a great play, and this course specifically set up really well for him, and he had great course history there. So I loved him and plugged him in. And last guy is Chez Reavie, another Colin special. I'll be honest, I was not on Chez, at all to start the year, but now doing podcasts with Colin. Chez Reavie is one of those guys that just consistently underpriced, and he's a better golfer than where he's ranked and where the odds rank him right now. So he's a guy that I'm going to roster quite a bit, very cheap price. If you just look at Chez Reavie here, he's just a stud for his price. I mean, if you look at his game log, he's just consistently making cuts, which is huge. And for his price tag, you can see here, it's really been the 6s. Now it's creeping into the 7K range. He's someone that you want to roster. So I plugged him in, and fortunately he did well here. He rated really high in my Fantasy Labs model, and I'm sure we'll be rostering him going forward. I think he's ranking pretty well this week as well. So if we move to my cash game team, it's pretty similar to the tournament team with the exception of a couple guys. You can see I had 3 of the same guys in Haas, Kelly, and Knox. I'd say those 3 and Chez Reavie were kind of, 4 guys in my core. I also played Luke Donald, who I had on a ton of teams. He was a very popular pick. Incredible course history here. Another tied for second, had a great chance to win. He's really turning his game around. He's a guy that really fit last week's course. Shorter hitter, but great short game. He's not going to win on Bombers courses, but he's definitely turning it around. Former number 1 who really lost his swing when he tried to gain more distance so he can compete in majors, is back to his game and really focusing on his short game, which is his strength. So love hearing that, and Luke Donald was a great play this week. He was very heavily owned in a lot of different formats, and rightfully so with that great course history. So one thing that I think I probably value a little bit more than the average person, and I think there's a huge debate on this on Twitter as well, I really value when someone has absolutely elite course history. I think course history overall is a stat that's probably overrated, with the exception of some courses. Really like the value of course history at, like, say, Augusta. And I don't weight it too much, but this week I weighted a little bit more especially for guys like Luke Donald, because he had such elite course history. He'd never missed a cut. He'd been second 3 or 4 times, top 5 or 6 times out of 7 times. I mean, just extraordinary course history. And in addition to that, the course history lines up with his course fit. So I thought Luke Donald was a great play for that reason, and so did everyone else. Shot 7 under, tied for second. The other guy is Matthew Fitzpatrick. This was my bold call of the week that went horribly wrong. Matthew Fitzpatrick tweeted out that this was his favorite course. He ranked really high in Fantasy Labs, and I touted him very heavily on the podcast, and he missed the cut by 1 stroke with just a horrible back 9. Made 3 birdies in a row in the back 9, but also bogeyed 4 of the last 5. He was all over the place. So he let me down, certainly, but was a guy that rated really well for me overall on the week. And I don't hate my process here, but certainly not going to put as much stock into what these golfers are saying on Twitter. And finally, the last guy that I didn't talk about was Webb Simpson. Ended up doing really poorly on Saturday and Sunday, but made the cut, which was nice, right on the number. And he was a guy that just rated really well in my Fantasy Labs models. Colin also brought him up as someone who's, popping in his model. So I thought he was a good play, and I thought that for his price, he made sense. And I did roll this in the majority of my cash games. Also played Kisner over Fitzpatrick in some of my cash games. So if you got that team in cash, I'm sorry, because that team did better without the missed cut. But overall, really fun week. Very proud of what happened. Certainly, I feel much better about my golf process in general now that we have tools at Fantasy Labs. And also very blessed to be doing the podcast with Colin and Brian. Certainly learn a lot every time I do that. So I'll be doing more of these. Happy to be writing a heater here. Hopefully I can make it 3 weeks in a row. If not, that's DFS. But looking forward to this week and certainly excited to be playing daily fantasy golf each and every week. And we'll be coming with a lineup review to you guys every time I do play. So good luck in all your fantasy contests going forward. Hope to see more Fantasy Lab subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.